Welcome back to this week's chat with Charnie, brand new for 2023. Today we get to speak to CEO and founder of Mycahub.co.za, your CPD trainer, specialist, and helper. So let's get right into this interview to meet our special guest. Welcome, Mama, to Chat with Charnie. It's so awesome to have you here. I think that what you're doing with your software, with your platform is amazing. Please tell us a bit more about yourself and also Mycahub.
Charnie, thanks so much for having me here. Hi to all of Chat with Charnie's viewers. My name is Mohammed Ismail Bulbulia. I'm the founder and editor of Mycahub. We're a proudly South African startup that creates software solutions tailor-made for CAs and aims to make accounting awesome for everyone else. Our flagship product that's tailor-made for CAs is our all-in-one CPD toolkit designed to make compliance with SAICA's new CPD policy as easy as possible for SAICA members, CAs specifically, and save you time.
Awesome. And you know, Mohammed, I've not been working for the past year, as my viewers would know. And I'm like, how am I going to remain compliant with my CPD requirements? Because, you know, I don't want to get into SAICA's bad side or anything like that. And I want to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because as a CASA, that is one of the things that I have to abide by, an ethical code. And I have to do what I'm saying I'm going to do. So tell me, how does Mycahub help me remain compliant?
Awesome. So as you've mentioned, right, SAICA have introduced a new CPD policy effective from 1st Jan 2020. And we've been getting a lot of questions and interest from SAICA members who have been receiving SAICA's emails reminding you about your annual declaration due by this year's 28th Feb 2023.
Yes, I just actually got an email, I think a day or two ago. Yes, yesterday. And I was like, oh my goodness, I gotta get to it.
Exactly. And that's the conundrum that a lot of CAs are finding themselves in that they're receiving the reminder emails from SAICA, are you CPD compliant? You've got to declare soon. The ethics reflections, have you reflected on ethics appropriately? Yet a lot of members are not too in touch or not aware of the actual CPD requirements of what they have to do per the policy on a year-on-year basis under the new framework.
Yes, that's me. And I think that's like all my friends as well. I don't think any of us know what is actually the new policy and what we're required to do.
Very true. And in addition to that, once you find out, and we'll go through the requirements of the new policy, so everyone does have an idea, you'll see that it seems to be quite admin intensive and have changed. Some of the requirements have changed from the prior policy requirements. So if you haven't kept updated with that, you also may not be fully compliant, even if you're not a newly qualified CA, you've been around for quite a while. Our all-in-one CPD toolkit is designed to make your compliance, your CPD compliance, as easy as possible with each of the key steps, as well as save you time. We know that CAs don't really have the time, or are probably doing work in their own everyday careers or workplace that keeps them continuously professionally developing. They are keeping up to date with what's going on in the workplace and in the greater CA industry, etc. However, when it comes to documenting your compliance in terms of meeting SAICA's requirements, that's where there seems to also be a break and people don't know what to do. And that's again where our toolkit comes in to make it as easy as possible for you to do all of that.
So Mohammed, you've told us how it can help, what your app does. Please show us, because I think we need some visual representation so that we can understand a bit more, and also show us where in the SAICA guidance we can also look to see that we're being compliant.
Amazing. I'd love to do that, Charnie. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'll share my screen now, and what we'll do in this quick session is I'll take you through SAICA's pages with its own CPD policy, so your viewers have an understanding of what's required from them per the new policy and how they would have to address it using SAICA's provided resources. And after that, we'll go through our all-in-one CPD toolkit to show you how it makes it as easy as possible and saves you time.
Sounds perfect.
Awesome. I've shared my screen now, and you can see this is SAICA's site with FAQs on the new CPD policy to assist CAs with the new policy requirements. So an important thing to note is under the old CPD policy applicable until 1st Jan 2020, there was a minimum number of CPD hours you had to complete each year. It was 40 hours in total, out of which 20 hours had to be verifiable CPD evidence, in the sense that you went for courses, webinars, or from CPD providers, and you got a certificate that deemed the number of hours. And the other 20 hours were non-verifiable. You could do self-study or other forms of continual professional development learning that weren't verifiable, that you didn't need a certificate for. Under the new CPD policy applicable from 1st Jan 2020, the biggest change to note is that there is no minimum required number of CPD hours anymore, neither verifiable nor non-verifiable. There's no minimum required number of hours. Instead, each CA is required to comply with 5 key steps per the new policy and document their compliance in what SAICA has provided, given something called the Reflective Plan Template, which is a 5-page document available from SAICA's site, which they've provided for SAICA members to assist in documenting their compliance with those 5 key steps. But what are the 5 key steps that you have to comply with? Okay, firstly, each CA is required to identify specific competencies in relation to each of the following areas required for them to be professionally competent in their role. Which areas? Professional values and attitudes, enabling competencies, and technical competencies. But of course, the first question is, what competencies where? Like, where do I even start?
Yeah.
So in order to assist, SAICA have developed something called the Postqualification Competency Framework, where this is also from SAICA's site. It integrates with the CA 2025 Pathways to Relevance and Program. And what they've done is they've taken about 70 competencies and defined them. They've defined about 70 competencies split between categories and subcategories, you'll see over here. So for example, we've got professional values and attitudes, which corresponds to professional values and attitudes over here. We've then got enabling and future competencies, which corresponds to enabling competencies over here. And then we finally got technical competencies, which speaks to technical competencies over here. And you see that within each of the big categories, so you've got professional values and attitudes as an overarching category with the subcategory ethics, and then the individual competencies, personal ethics with its own definition, business ethics with its own definition, professional ethics with its own definition. Then the next subcategory being lifelong learning, and again, each with their own competencies, with their own definitions again, and citizenship. Then the next big chunk, this green chunk, enabling and future competencies, similar situation. And finally, you've got the technical competencies, no subcategory here, just a whole list of individual technical competencies, again, with the definition alongside. So of course, the next question is, and we're still just on this first step, identifying specific competencies, do each of these competencies then apply to me as a CA? And the answer is no. In order to assist you with identifying specific competencies relevant to your role, SAICA have taken the CA or accountancy profession and divided it into 10 career paths, with the idea being that you'd select the career path that best applies to your current role and position. For example, let's go with audit and assurance as an easy
since most
example.
of us are within that little bundle.
100%. And an important point to note is if there is some overlap between your career paths, the idea is that you choose the one that best currently applies. And I'll show you how in our toolkit we integrate the ability for you to add other specific learning areas that may not pop up from your career path, but you'll see what I mean soon. So let's go to audit and assurance. And you'll see within each of the career paths, SAICA have then assigned 3 proficiency levels. Again, the idea being that you'd select the proficiency level that best applies to you in your current role and position. Let's say you're a newly qualified CA. It would then make sense for you to select entry level as your proficiency level within audit and assurance. Once we've clicked that, and again, this is all from SAICA's site, you'll see that SAICA have then recommended out of the 70 competencies total, about 35 to 40 competencies that they feel best apply in this career path at this proficiency level. An important point to note here is do all of these competencies then apply? This has helped you with the first step over here in identifying specific competencies. But of course, you want to know, do all of these competencies then apply to you, and you have to, include all of them? The simple answer is no. If we
Good.
come back to SAICA's FAQs over here, we'll see they've specifically answered how many competencies should I list on my reflective plan? Does SAICA have a minimum number of competencies that should be listed? SAICA does not prescribe how many competencies a member should list, as this should be role specific and unique to your circumstances. So there's no minimum number. However, they have indicated that members should identify specific competencies in relation to each of the following areas required for you to be professionally competent in your role. Which areas? Again, professional values and attitudes, enabling competencies, and technical competencies. With the idea being that out of each of these three chunks, you then identify some competencies in relation to each of those that you think are relevant in your current role. That helps you take care of step one, identifying specific competencies. The next step that each CA is required to comply with is to self-assess against these competencies to identify specific areas for development. But of course, the question is, what does it mean to self-assess? So in order to assist with this step, SAICA have come up with a rating system from 1 to 4. And you'll notice next to each competency, there's a number from 1 to 4, with most of the required numbers per competency for an entry level proficiency level at 2s and 3s. As you move up to mid-management, there'll be more 3s and 4s, and at senior management, it's almost all 4s. But what does a 2, 3, or 4 actually mean? So in order to assist you with this self-assessment determination, SAICA have come up with this proficiency level scoring table. Let me just zoom in here a little bit. With the idea being that based on the type of competency, there's between 2 and 5 questions that you then answer on 4 levels of competence: 1 foundation level, 2 intermediate level, 3 advanced level, and 4 expert level. And you'd arrive at an average score and compare that to SAICA's required level. So this looks like a hot mess. The easiest way to understand it, again, using SAICA's resources, we've simplified this tremendously in our toolkit.
Good, because this is giving me anxiety just looking at all of the stuff that I have to do. It feels like so much admin, so many steps that I have to take.
And I mean, as an accountant, as a CA, AGA, ATSA, where do you have the time? You don't have the time. You're busy asking clients for feedback and you're for the requirements. Anyway. So the idea being that so the easiest way to understand how to use SAICA's resources is to do an example together. So let's go back to audit and assurance entry level. Let's say you deem personal ethics relevant in your current role and you'd like to self-assess against personal ethics. You've identified it and now you'd like to self-assess against it. SAICA's required level is a 3. What you then have to do using SAICA's resources is you then come back to this page, look at the personal ethics definition. It's under ethics, which is under professional values and attitudes. You then come back to the proficiency scoring table, because here's professional values and attitudes over here, which personal ethics falls under. And there's 2 questions, as you can see, 2 rows. You then answer the questions. I display personal ethics 1 occasionally, 2 always under specific circumstances, 3 always under all circumstances. Unfortunately, there's been a point of confusion that's been raised. They seem to have given the same answer for 3 and 4 for the very first question. We've eliminated this confusion in our toolkit, and we've consulted SAICA and cleared it with them too. Let's say you score yourself 4, always under all circumstances for the first question, and then for the second question, I display personal ethics 1 in a simple context, 2 in an easily understood context, 3 in a difficult context, 4 in a demanding context. Let's say I score myself 2 for the second question. 4 plus 2 gives me 6. 6 divided by 2 questions gives me an average of 3. I've scored myself 3 for this competency, personal ethics. SAICA's required level is a 3. Because I've scored equal to or greater than SAICA's required level, I've passed this competency, and therefore no further work is required for the year for this competency. Let's say I then deem data analytics as a relevant competency in my current role, because if I'm a newly qualified CA, maybe working at Mycahub or SAPRO, and I'm doing something relating to data, or I'd like to develop in that regard, you deem data analytics relevant to your current role, you want to self-assess on that competency. again, using SAICA resources, you then flip back to the competency page. You'd have to come look for data analytics. Here's data analytics with its own definition, and it's under enabling and future competencies. You come along here and say, okay, enabling and future competencies on the proficiency scoring table has 5 questions. Let me answer those now. I use data analytics during task performance or during task involvement to initiate tasks, to complete all steps. Let's say I score myself 4, 3, 1, 1, 2. And let's say my average ends up being 1.3 over the 5 questions. I've scored myself 1.3. SAICA's required level for data analytics is 2. Because I've scored lower than SAICA's required level, I've failed that competency in inverted commas, and that's helped me identify specific areas of development for the year. So the outcome of that self-assessment exercise is to identify learning areas or areas of development for the year that helps you comply with step 2. Cool. You're done with steps 1 and 2. That's just the planning phase. Step 3 requires that you then find and undertake relevant learning interventions, so relevant CPD activities that help you address the competence areas identified. So the idea being that you then go in the year and find relevant CPD activities that assist you in developing those failed competencies / learning areas identified. Once you've found and done the CPD activities, you're still not done. Because it's the reflective plan, you have to then reflect on the effectiveness of each of the learning interventions in addressing your competence gap areas identified. So how effective was the activity that you did in addressing the competence area you identified as part of the self-assessment requirement stage step 2. Once you're done with that, you then have to document and maintain your evidence for a period of 3 years. And that's why SAICA has provided the reflective plan template in order to assist CAs with documenting their compliance with each of those 5 key steps. You then maintain your evidence for a period of 3 years as SAICA is conducting random CPD audits on their members to determine compliance with the CPD policy requirements. That's the first part. The reflective plan is the first part. What you'll notice from the emails that have been coming out from SAICA, the annual declaration, which is due by 28th February 2023 this year, for the 2022 CPD year, that is where you go onto SAICA's site and declare that you have complied with each of the steps, each of these 5 key steps from their policy. You've identified competency, self-assessed, undertaken CPD activities, and reflected. That's due by the 28th Feb 2023. If you are selected for a random CPD audit, you then provide your reflective plan for that year. Non-compliance, SAICA has indicated, could be grounds for a disciplinary hearing, as they have indicated it would be contravention of the CPC. That's the new CPD policy in a nutshell. Do you have any specific questions at this stage that you'd like to ask on behalf of your viewers?
Mohammed, I think you answered a lot of questions, and that was like information that just came flooding. And I think that what SAICA has done has made it easier in the sense that we don't have to complete all these hours just for the sake of having the hours to give up to them to say that we're compliant. Now we kind of have to, make it more personal. What are the skills that we actually need to look out for, or what are the skills that we need to obtain in order to fulfill our roles or future roles that we are looking forward to obtaining? And I think that is awesome. The whole change in it. Is there more admin? Yes, there's definitely more admin, but I think that with your program, it makes it a whole lot easier and it does all the documenting for your clients. So I think that it's best to let us jump into that so that we can all see like how you intend on helping us, people like me.
This is page 1 of our all-in-one CPD toolkit, and you'll see on each page, there's a little head that says need help, which tells you what each page corresponds to per SAICA's reflective plan template. And you can also download that template here, so you can have a look to see what we've asked for on a one-on-one basis. So for the first page, we're asking name, surname, contact number, email address, and SAICA number. That's what we've asked for here. And you can fill your SAICA number in at any time. You don't have to fill it in to proceed. And click next step. And I think, as we indicated, the drivers of your competencies are the career path you've selected, or you select, and your proficiency level. So going with the example from before, you can then simply come and click audit and assurance. You'd select your relevant career path and then scroll to the bottom and click next step. You can also change it. However, that will clear future progress. However, once you've selected your career path that best applies to you, it will pop up here. And we're now on page 2 of SAICA's template. What are we asking for? Your current position, title, role. How long have you been active in your current role? That's these 2 questions over here. You can fill that in and then after that, you'd select your proficiency level, either entry, mid-management, or senior. We'd go with entry level for like a newly qualified CA to proceed. Next step. We've also integrated the recording requirements for CPD for SARS as a registered tax practitioner, the CIPC if you're a registered business rescue practitioner, or IRBA if you're a registered auditor. There are additional verifiable CPD hour requirements for those other designations, and we've integrated the recording requirements for those into our toolkit too. Then, if none of those apply, that's great, less CPD to worry about. We then click next step, and we're still corresponding to page 2. What are your responsibilities in your current role? Where would you like to be career-wise in the next 12 months, in the short term, and beyond the next 12 months, medium to long term? That's these 3 questions over here. You can fill this in at any time to proceed. You don't need to fill this in to continue. You can click next step. And now we get to the big juicy part. That's which competence areas have you identified in relation to your current role that require further development? This question over here. That's this whole self-assessment competency debacle, but we help you do it in just a few clicks. So if you click next step here, you'll see we've pulled 4 audit and assurance at entry level. All of these competencies that SAICA have recommended, we've pulled them into our toolkit, ready for you to score with just a couple of clicks. Remember, all you have to do is click, for example, under if you want to score yourself under professional values and attitudes. Let's say you want to look at the competencies under the ethics subcategory. You click ethics, and those 3 individual ethics competencies will pop up: personal, business, and professional ethics. Instead of you'd simply click on the competency, instead of you having to deal with clicking through each of these pages and looking at the definition, checking what the score is, determining which questions you have to answer, and then calculating your average, all you have to do is click. We've pulled in the definition here per competency, and you can simply score yourself. How often do you display this professional value or attitude? That corresponds to this first question. We've made it multiple choice. Once you've scored yourself, there's 2 questions for professional values and attitudes. You click submit, and you've literally scored yourself for the entire year. You've self-assessed on that competency for the entire year, and a little green box will appear around it. You're done.
Question, Mohammed. Do
Yes.
I have to go through each one of those, personal ethics, business ethics, and professional ethics, to be compliant with the ethics section? Or is it okay that I only tick off personal ethics and I don't go through to the other 2 if I don't deem those necessary?
That is a brilliant question, Charnie. Thanks so much. Whilst the new CPD policy does specifically state that there are no minimum required number of competencies that should be listed. So what that means is, at this stage of the self-assessment in identifying relevant competencies to you, out of those 3 ethics competencies, you do not have to include any of those at this stage, right? You could include 1, you could include none. However, SAICA did update their CPD policy in Circular 2 of 2021, whereby, to avoid a situation where I think you've literally spelled out, in the sense that someone could avoid including ethics at all, that amendment dictated that each CA is required to reflect. So at stage 5, reflection, to reflect on each of these ethic competencies, regardless of whether they identified them as a learning area or not. So regardless of whether you've integrated them or assessed them here at this stage, each CA is required to reflect on each of the ethics competencies in the reflection stage, if that answers your question.
So does that particular circular that you just mentioned only relate to ethics, or does it relate to the enabling competencies and technical competencies as well, or is it only the ethics there?
Right. That amendment that was passed in the circular is specifically only for ethics. It's
Okay.
only for the ethics competencies.
Okay, cool. Because I feel like the others Like the technical one has like the most competencies, and having to click through all of those and assessing will take a lot of time. But
Absolutely,
you'll get
absolutely.
there. You'll get there. We'll see it.
100% and 100%, but and you don't even have to do that. But yes, great point at this stage, and I hope that addresses that question to your satisfaction.
Thank
We can
you.
then perfect. We can then continue. I think where we left off was you scored yourself on personal ethics. Remember, with our toolkit, you can also always come back and rescore yourself at any time if you'd like, and resubmit your new score. I'm just putting back to the old score, and it will capture your latest score. So you're not stuck with your score. You can always change your score per competency if you deem that you'd like to reassess or re-answer the questions on the first go. It didn't you weren't necessarily applying or satisfied with your outcome, but you've deemed actually I am competent in this role and I'd like to re-answer. You're more than welcome to do that. If you'd like to, for example, we'll go through a couple of other competencies. Here's business ethics.
Yes.
Let's fail a couple of competencies. So I'm just going to score myself on the minimum score for these. Again, you'll see once you've scored yourself on a competency, a little green box will appear around it. And you can literally score yourself or perform the self-assessment exercise in under 20 minutes for the entire year. Remember, using our toolkit. Remember, you don't have to do all competencies, but you do have to do at least or self-assess yourself on at least one competency or some competencies from each of the big three categories. So for here, where we've gone in and done ethics under the ethics subcategory, so that if I deem that all relevant, if I deem that's all I deem relevant from a professional values and attitudes perspective, that's perfectly fine. It's entirely up to you. Remember, it's your self-reported reflective plan. If I deem that I'd like to do a couple of more professional values and attitudes competencies, I could click on lifelong learning. And again, the three individual competencies under lifelong learning will pop up. Remember, since they're professional values and attitudes, they still have two questions at the top here. Yeah. If we come back to, again, if I don't want to score, I don't have to score. I can click close and previous step. It's entirely up to you. Yeah. We'll now go through some of the enabling and future competencies.
Before you go there, I just want you to go back up. So with the citizenship one, I would definitely recommend that everyone who's working abroad or who wants to work abroad go through this, especially the global citizen one, because that shows how you are with people from different cultures, people from different nationalities. And I think that's a really good competency for people to focus on if you are working in a different country.
Absolutely. That's a great point, and very relevant. And it's a good point to point out for people in a similar situation that are working abroad. Great point. Thanks, Charnie. Thanks so much. And I'll just score this one just for fun to submit. And you've literally sorted yourself for the year. Great. If we come back, we can look at the enabling and future competencies. When we were going through SAICA's resources, I think we deemed, for example, data analytics as a relevant one. So we could come here under digital acumen, and you'll see there's data analytics ready for you to score. And because it's enabling and future competency, there's 5 questions over here. Again, instead of you having to deal with columns and questions and average answers, you can simply
rating myself.
Yes,
like the X column and the Y. Yeah, no, thank you.
Performing not quick maths, the direct opposite of quick maths, if I may say. Yeah. And yeah, and there you go. You've literally scored yourself. If you come here for cybersecurity, I'm just going to score myself on cybersecurity just for fun, and then you submit. And once you're done on again, you just do some. The requirement is that you identify some competencies from each of those overarching areas. So we'll just come down here and look at some of the technical competencies. You are right. Most of the competencies listed do fall into the technical category. If, for example, you are working in audit and assurance, while SAICA does have tax planning and tax governance as a recommended competency, remember, if it's not relevant to your current role, you don't have to include it. So you just don't even have to score it at all. And if we look at financial management as an example, under technical competencies, there's 3 questions at the bottom here. So 2 for professional values and attitudes, 5 for enabling, and 3 for technical. You can simply score yourself, submit, done for the entire year. Once you've self-assessed yourself using these yes, do you have any questions at this stage, Charnie?
No, I think the first time that I went through this, I thought that I had to go through each and every single one of those things because I didn't understand SAICA's policy, the CPD policy. So I went through all of that. And then obviously it kicked out that I needed like 10,002 like competencies to complete. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like
Yes.
I need Muhammad's help on this one. So, and I feel like I wouldn't be the only one that would think that. So I think it's very important, that we stress, and like you have stressed, that you only have to pick those little icons that relate to you individually, to your career, to where you're going to. For example, if I don't do tax, I definitely don't do South African tax. I haven't done it in years. I'm not going to go to tax planning. Right? If I don't need to know about governance structures and things like that in my occupation, then I don't have to go and do that one. I can just skip it and go to the ones that are eligible for me.
100%, absolutely. And you've hit the nail on the head, with the idea being, and then instead of you then having to select from this list and dealing with between tabs, we've simplified it for you, and you can always come and rescore yourself. So if you do deem financial management relevant, and I'll show you. So we'll go, as you said, a lot kicked out as learning areas. If you do want to come back and amend your score at any time, you're more than welcome to. Awesome. Cool. So once you've self-assessed yourself on these relevant competencies, you then come down to the bottom and click next step. And this will give you a nice little summary of your results. So for each competency that you've scored, we've got SAICA's required level per this page over here, and then your self-reported score per competency automatically calculated. For where your self-reported score is greater than SAICA's score, you green, good to go, you've passed that competency, no learning area identified for the year, no further work required. For where your score is lower than SAICA's required level for that competency, our system will automatically identify a learning area and spit it out as a failed competency / learning area identified. That's what you want to focus on. Remember, again, you can always go back and change your scores. Once you're happy with these results, you can then simply click add this to my reflective plan, and that will filter out all your passes, all the greens, because we're only interested in the reds in your learning areas for the year. You then simply click continue, and you've literally completed up to page 3 for the year. Learning areas identified for development. If we come down here, here's your learning areas identified for development. Each of the competencies that pop out from the self-assessment exercise and what prompted the need, you've already done it. Identified per application of the SAICA Postqualification Competency Framework for each of those competencies. Let's say you want to develop, or you've identified an area that you'd like to further develop on your own in the year that SAICA have not defined as a specific competency. Can you then add that in your toolkit or as per the policy? SAICA says, yes, please feel free to undertake any or add any new learning areas and just try to assign it to the relevant competency where you can. And here's how you would do that in our toolkit. You come down and click add a learning area. And this takes you to the page where we've integrated all the other CPD requirements for other registered bodies. So for example, if you're a registered tax practitioner, you'd have to do 10 verifiable tax-specific CPD hours, as well as 2 verifiable ethics-specific CPD hours, and 6 verifiable service-related CPD hours under the new policy. What we've done is we've integrated all of those requirements and assigned the relevant SAICA competency. All you have to do is click add this to my reflective plan. The purpose of this is for these other registered bodies, whether it's SARS, URBA, or the CIPC, their CPD policy states that you can maintain your evidence in any relevant format. And as SAICA is a registered controlling body between SARS, for example, and SAICA's members and registered tax practitioners, that means you can submit your reflective plan. You can document your evidence of compliance with SARS CPD's requirements in your SAICA reflective plan and submit that to SARS if you're selected for a SARS CPD audit in that regard. The only thing you then additionally have to provide, because SARS has verifiable requirements, is evidence of the verifiable requirements that you've undertaken to, whether it's 10 hours tax-specific, 2 ethics, or 6 service-related. And you also then provide your completed reflective plan that you've generated using our toolkit. Here's
And
the CI. Yes,
and then
question?
I know that because Mohammed and I had a conversation where we went through my CPD and my reflective plan as well not too long ago. And you actually say that I could put in my YouTube channel in this as like a custom one, if I'm not mistaken. So I could put in my YouTube channel, Chatz with Charnie, and I could put it under, do you want to just show how the
Absolutely.
viewers could do
Yes,
that
yes.
if they also have a professional platform or whatever, such as myself?
Yes, 100%. As you indicated, we do allow for you to add your own learning areas for any for any additional competencies that SAICA may have not defined that you deem relevant in your current role. Okay, wait, let me start that again. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Yes, absolutely. We do incorporate the ability for you to add your own learning areas, as you've indicated. For example, your YouTube channel, where you would like to develop in the year, and where you could do that in our toolkit. You just simply scroll down to the bottom. Let's say none of these additional CPD requirements apply to you. You can simply come down to the bottom and click add your own learning area. And let's do it for your one. I think we said, for example, you'd like to focus on developing your YouTube channel. So you could say developing, or specifically, not even so, you could developing video editing skills, right? Developing video editing skills for your YouTube channel. Like you could get even that specific. And Saika says that's perfectly fine as a learning area. Please try and assign a relevant competency where you can. So you click here, and this is where all of the competencies pop up. We've listed them. The one that would best apply, from my understanding, would perhaps be digital affinity. However, you could also use interdigital relationships. That's defined around using social media as a CA. But either, I think for video editing, it's more around, using technology and understanding. So it's up to you, actually. It's your reflective plan. It's what you deem relevant. We've provided all the competencies for you to assign at your will. Let's go with digital affinity for now. And reason for adding, you could say, I want to develop this skill as I am growing my YouTube channel. And you simply click add this to my reflective plan, and it'll be
Cool.
instantly added with the competency assigned, along with any other additional CPD requirements you had added. Let's say you could also use this, for example, to integrate specifics. If you are studying some, if you're trying to learn something in relation to US finance laws or ISQM 1 or 2 specifically, anything. This is where you could integrate those additional learning areas to tailor your reflective plan to your specific needs. You can always come back and edit or delete them at any time too.
Gotcha.
Once you're happy with that, you click continue, and yay, you've completed the planning phase, right? Steps 1 and 2 done. However, remember, you still have to find and then undertake relevant CPD activities that address those learning areas and then reflect on them once complete, which is still a schlep. That's why we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to do that too. We've gone and found relevant CPD courses, webinars, videos from around the web, and listed them in our toolkit, ready for you to book, along with all of SAICA's related CPD webinars for the year. So SAICA puts out a number of CPD competency relevant webinars and material throughout the year, and we've listed them in our toolkit too to make it as easy as possible for our users to book. If you'd like to do that, you can simply click choose activities now, and you'll see each of your failed competencies will pop up, as those are the ones you need to find CPD activities for. If we go to business ethics, for example, you'll see we've gone and found a Coursera course on global impact business ethics. Let's say you'd like to undertake that course. You can simply come here and click book now, and this will take you to the external site. We don't make any additional profit off these affiliate courses. We've simply added these as a value add to our users to help them save time and find those links. You then log in here, sign up for the Coursera course for free. And once you come back here, you can click add to my reflective plan to instantly add the details to your reflective plan. So you don't have to go and type, etc., and re-record the information. You can also book activities upcoming, and we'll send you reminder emails too. Here's where we've integrated all of SAICA's CPD related activities for the year, webinars and other material. These currently relate to 2022, as they haven't updated them yet for 2023. But once they do, we'll pop them in here, and you could simply once again click book now. This will take you to the external SAICA brochure. It's no longer valid because 2022 is over. But once again, you then book instantly, and you could come back and click add to my reflective plan, and we'll add those details instantly. You don't have to worry about adding the date, etc. And we'll send you reminder emails too. We've also partnered with other CAs who provide their own courses and CPD material. So if you are a CA or someone who is in the training industry and creating your own material that is relevant for CAs or other professionals, other SAICA members to use, please feel free to reach out. We'd be more than happy to list your material in our toolkit and have a conversation around that. We're always looking for more material for our users. We've partnered with for you. We've got a Mindsharp and all of SAICA's courses, as well as Udemy, Coursera courses, 100%. Let's say you don't want to add any of our affiliate activities, or you've gone and found your own activities in the year. You've done internal trainings. Maybe you've done some other third-party external CPD provided trainings too. You could then simply come and click next step, and this will take you to the activity planner. The activity planner corresponds to page 4 of SAICA's plan, where you then come and update your activities per competency for the year. If we look at our toolkit, each of the activities you've already booked will pop up ready for you per competency, and you can also edit or delete them. Or if you've done your own activity in the year, let's say you did an internal training on data analytics, you could come to the bottom and click add my own activity. And this will take you to this page. Again, all our affiliate activities will pop up, but you simply scroll to the bottom and click. Let's say you did an internal training on Excel data, and the provider was your internal company. And the type of activity was a webinar. The date of the activity, you can backdate it, future date it. Again, we'll send you reminder emails, and you'll just type in a short description over there, add this to my reflective plan, and you'll instantly add your own activity to your activity planner. If we come down here, you'll see it will be recorded for that competency in the required columns. And you'll see that we have an internal check in our toolkit so that any activities you recorded aren't marked as completed until you've reflected. Even though you may have passed the date and done the activity, only once you've reflected will this activity be marked as completed. At any time in the year, you can come to your dashboard, and this gives you a nice visual summary of your progress for the year. You've got your pass versus fail competencies. Out of the fail competencies, along with any additional learning areas you've added, you've got the ones you found CPD activities for versus the ones you still need to find CPD activities for. And out of the CPD activities you've completed, you've got the ones you've reflected on versus the ones you still need to reflect on. But the idea being to get the middle and right donut green by the end of the year as a nice visual indicator. If SAICA asks you, if SAICA asks you for your reflective plan for whichever year, you can simply come to the dashboard and click export to PDF, and this will pull your online secure info, your online reflective plan info from our secure online cloud and populate it in SAICA's recommended format, ready to send through. All you'd have to do is scroll to the bottom and click export to PDF. And this PDF document is what you would then provide to SAICA in the event you're selected as part of their random CPD audit. So you go page 1, page 2, with the tables ready to send through page 3.
That's awesome.
4.
That is awesome.
Thank you so much. And that's not.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed, so much for walking us through that. I think it was very important for people like myself, my friends, and so many people on Chatz with Charnie to see what you have to offer. So we know how, firstly, what SAICA is telling us, how we're supposed to be compliant, what we're supposed to be doing. And then secondly, how your platform can help us remain compliant. Then I think this is especially true for people who work abroad, you know, who do not work for audit firms, such as the Big Four, BDO, Grant Thornton, Mazars. But people are working in corporate or are working for consulting firms, because most of the times you're not really getting exposure to e-learnings or these CPD accredited courses that you can do with these companies. And you do need to find a way to look up articles, look up courses. And most of the time you're looking for free things, and it's not that easy to always find the free courses out there. And I didn't know about the articles thing, and I'm sure so many of us don't know about it. I didn't know about the YouTube, that I could watch videos on YouTube and still be compliant, and I'm sure a lot of people also didn't know that. So I think this is an awesome tool. I am recommending this to everybody who watches Chats with Charnie. I know a lot of you want to move abroad. A lot of you are living abroad, and I think this is an awesome tool to help you stay compliant with SAICA's rules and regulations regarding being CPD compliant and your CPD Declaration, like that Mohammed said, is supposed to be due on the 28th of February of 2023. So please make sure that you guys get into that. Thank you so much for being on Chatz with Charnie. Thank you for sharing your software and your platform with us, and for sharing your wisdom as well. We wish you all the best. If there's any last words of wisdom that you want to share with us, here's your opportunity. Go ahead.
Shani, thank you so much for your time and this opportunity to chat with Shani and your viewers too, and hopefully be of some assistance and share what my CA Hub is about and how our all-in-one toolkit can assist CAs with their CPD, as well as the My CA Hub platform, bigger in general. It's supposed to be a hub for CAs. If you're a CA or SAICA member and you'd like to reach out at any time, please visit mycahub.co.za and pop me via the contact form or visit the site. I'm always available to assist. I'd love to hear from you. mycahub.co.za. Thank you again, Shani. It's been a blast being on. Thank you for your time.
And thank you everyone for watching Chatz with Charnie. Please go and sign up with CA Hub, mycahub.com, and we will see you next week on Chatz with Charnie. Bye.